Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, The End of XXX Blocking Program. My name is Caitlin Aliberta and I will be your moderator. Before we get started, I'd like to make a few announcements. The audience will remain on mute for the duration of our session. However, you can enter your questions and comments in the Q&A widget at any time during the presentation. At the bottom of your screen are multiple application widgets you can use. All the widgets are resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to get the most of your desktop space. You can expand your slide area or maximize it to full screen by clicking the arrows in the top right corner. In the resource widget, you will find a PDF copy of today's presentation and a link to CSC blog. We encourage you to download any resources or links that you may find useful. Joining us today is Justin Hartland and John Prisco. And with that, let's welcome Justin and John.
Thank you, Caitlin. So my name's Justin Hartland. I work in the London office for CSC, and I'm just going to quickly cover the elements of today's webinar. So firstly, before we get into XXX and AdultBlocks, we're just going to talk about what is domain blocking. Then we're going to go into what are AdultBlocks. We'll take a quick look at the eligibility for AdultBlocks, the advantages of taking the AdultBlock Plus, and also a general look at the blocking strategy and recommendations. Okay, so let's start with what is domain blocking. Domain blocking is a top-level domain registry service that allows brand owners to block potential third-party registrations from other organizations and/or cyber squatters. The block domain registration would be the second level string or a term to the left of the dot. An example of that is mybrandstring.com. So it's the my brand string that we're looking at blocking. Blocks help reduce cyber squatting and provide an active approach to protecting your marks online. They can be an effective way of protecting one's marks without breaking the bank. They replace the need for mass defensive registrations and can save costs by reducing the volume of your enforcement activities. And it can help save you money from reputational damage as well. So let's continue looking at domain blocking. Blocking mechanisms need to be a conscious part of a three-pronged domain strategy. As a brand holder, you can choose to either block, register defensively, or choose not to proactively act, but actually monitor the space and take enforcement actions when you're required to. You can choose to apply a different approach to different marks within your portfolio, depending on your budget and your risk tolerance, or your security posture. It is important to remember that blocks come in many shapes and many forms, and it is important to understand the differences between them when making the decision on where to block and where to monitor instead. So in summary, when you're managing thousands of domain names, you've got three different approaches. You can choose to block, you can choose to register domains defensively, or you can monitor, or you can do all three, or a mixture of three. And that depends on how much budget and how much risk you want to mitigate. So now let's look at AdultBlock and AdultBlock Plus. The AdultBlocks offered by the ICM registry since 2019 are ones to keep an eye on this year. The registry offers a regular and a plus version of the block, with the AdultBlock Plus being a more comprehensive block that offers a wider coverage of protection for exact match terms as well as variations. These can be things such as homoglyphs, IDNs, and TMCH variant coverage. An important change to get ready for is the expiry of the original Sunrise B XXX blocks on December 1st this year. The original blocks were done for a 10-year period and since have been simply blocked at the registry level. At the end of this original period, in December of this year, the registry will now be retiring the XXX blocks and replacing them with the AdultBlock instead. If you are an owner of a XXX Sunrise B block, that means you will need to make a decision on what marks to keep blocking and to convert to the AdultBlock. and which ones you wish to discontinue. The blocks will be automatically converted if no decision is provided to your registrar. Therefore, it is critical to connect with your support team to establish a good strategy for these conversions. Just to put it into context, if you take either one of these products, it will block your brands against the domain extensions of .xxx, .sex, .adult, and .porn. Another thing to keep in mind with AdultBlocks is that the registry has been recently acquired by GoDaddy and is taking actions to open up the blocking mechanism to all trademark holders and relaxing some of the rules around usage of its current adult TLDs. These changes may in the future lead to an increase in infringements in this area. Up until now, only members of the adult industry could register a XXX domain for active use. These rules will most likely be relaxed over the next year. The registry has also just expanded the eligibility criteria to register an adult block. A TMCH registration will no longer be needed, and all registered trademark holders will qualify, and we'll have a look at that in further detail in a few moments. Okay, so who's eligible to register an adult block? So firstly, owners of the original .XXX Sunrise B Blocks can also take advantage of adult blocks. Owners of SMD files, signed marked data files that are obtained from the TMCH are also eligible. And since May the 11th of this year, AdultBlock services are also available for the following trademark holders to register a block. So it could be an unregistered trademark, registered trademarks not previously in the XXX program, registered trademarks that don't even have an SMD file. So TMCH records are no longer required. And we'll take a quick look at some of the additional areas that you can use to gain an adult block. Okay, so let's look in further detail at the eligibility that is now available for brand owners. So this table shows how AdultBlock eligibility has been expanded. If we just look at a few examples of what you can do now to block your brands, it can be things such as providing company letterhead or articles of incorporation. As mentioned before, you no longer require a TMCH record. So you can use unregistered trademarks, or if you're a celebrity or have a celebrity name, then you can use documentation, websites, etc. to use as proof to gain these blocks. So from a brand holder perspective, if you are looking to block in this area, then there are a lot of different ways now that you can provide evidence to get those blocks with the registry. Okay, so let's just recap on the XXX Sunrise B Blocks. So .XXX blocks were launched 10 years ago, and many companies took up this offering, and now they are going to expire in December 1st this year. So you need to take action if you have one of these blocks, either to renew it as an adult block or to lapse it. The registry will be auto-converting if registrars do not give instructions to lapse, so you definitely want to take a look at this as the deadlines are fast approaching. CSC, for example, actually have a deadline a little bit earlier because we need to process the orders, so that will be November 20th. So make sure that you look at these blocks strategically, and I'm going to pass over to John now, who's going to talk to you about how you can come up with the best strategy for blocking. He's also going to look at AdultBlock Plus in a little bit of detail as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. And my name is John Prisco. I work for CSC out of our Wilmington offices. And before we go into the strategic recommendations, let's take a more in-depth look at the AdultBlock Plus product. A trend we've seen with our customers is that many are taking up the AdultBlock Plus product for their core brands. This service, as shown here for CSC, can cover over 500 variations of the brand, including homoglyphs, miskeyed variants, missing characters, and many more variations. With the AdultBlock product, you will only get exact match blocks, which for secondary brands can be a useful tool. I'll now go into further details on the thinking around this strategically. Firstly, you may even want to look at your overall blocking strategy. For example, the Registry Donuts offer the DPML product, which covers over 200 domain extensions and can be a very cost-effective way to mitigate against third-party registrations. The next steps are to consider your budget and risk appetite. Once you've done this, then you need to consider the following. Make a list of your brands. This can simply be done by looking at your top domain name strings, something that CSC can assist you with. Then look at which ones are your core brands and which ones are secondary or even tertiary brands. If your company suffers from phishing attempts or fraud, then blocking is a simple way of stopping any use of your marks. You may want to look at your brands and whether they might mean something in the adult industry. If you have high-profile people within your organization or characters, then you may want to consider blocking them as well. Additionally, if your company sells products to children, you may want to take an aggressive stance and block all your brands to ensure it doesn't have any association with the adult industry. Finally, you should check if you have new brands which were not part of the original Sunrise B Blocks. You should also look at whether blocks are with other companies or even law firms, and see if they've reminded you or brought this to your attention as well. Finally, ask your registrar to provide a list of the top domain string terms in your portfolio. 10 years into this program, we now have a very different landscape. We have learned from the TLDs that already launched and saw which blocks endured and which collapsed. In this time of block consolidation and retirement, your own brands most likely have also gone through a similar transformation. So it is a good time to step back and take a moment to review your existing blocks and get ready for the upcoming block changes as well. We currently support 4 blocking mechanisms: DPML, TREX, .club, and AdultBlocks. If you are reviewing your adult blocks, it may be worth taking time to look at these additional blocks as well. And just some final considerations around the topic of blocking. If you have a XXX Sunrise B block, make sure you inform your registrar which names to convert and with which product. Make sure you include new trademarks. These blocks originally happened 10 years ago, and things have certainly changed. If you haven't used an AdultBlock product before, decide which of your core brands would be appropriate to protect. And finally, the deadline is December 1st, 2021. However, CSC's order cutoff will be November 20th of this year.